How do I know if I'm working my abdominals correctly in a Pilates class? Today, I want to take you through some things you might like to think about when you're doing exercises like lying on your back, head, neck, and shoulders lifted. Maybe those legs are lifted to specifically work and target the front of your body to make it stronger, to stretch it, to increase it in terms of flexibility and mobility. Let's break it down. The first thing that I want to remind you of is that when you are lifting your head, neck, and shoulders off the mat, what we want to happen is these front ribs, these lower front ribs, to turn to lift you up. Often I'll describe it as a chest lift. So that chest is lifting and those ribs are curling to get you that extra little bit of height. So your shoulder blades are coming off the mat behind you. You're not aiming to get much higher than just sort of off those shoulder blades. Sometimes we might try to be here, but you don't need to be. When we're looking for that, we call thoracic flexion, we're looking for just that upper body to be curled off the mat. The most important thing is to reach the arms forward, to remember that you curl your shoulders forward and that actually you are rounding your chest. I know you will hear movement teachers or Pilates teachers cue you to keep your collarbones open and wide. To be honest, I think that's just a verbal tick that Pilates teachers have heard and said so often that they say it in every instance, like good or well done or just 3 more when they really mean 17 more. In this instance, forget about having your collarbones wide. They can't be because you are in flexion. We have to round the shoulders. So it's the first thing, and that will really help with your head positioning as well. And any tension that you might be feeling in your neck. It's a really common question I get. I feel my neck a lot in Pilates, especially at the beginning. How do I sort that? Well, you sort that by curling up, looking down at either your pubic bone or your belly button somewhere here, so we're not looking up at the ceiling and straining the neck. You're also not squeezing your jaw down, okay? We've got a nice relaxed jaw, but we're sort of aiming the eye line around here, okay? We're reaching the arms forward, and then we're encouraging that wrap around of the shoulder blade, both sides, to help keep us lifted. Now, what do you do with your abdominals? When you curl up, you might see them puff forwards, okay? That's normal because you're contracting them, all right? You are shortening the space that your organs basically have to take up. So absolutely normal that those abdominals might push forwards. Those abdominal muscles might push forwards a little bit. The question is, how much effort should you put into pulling them back down? Well, it depends. And this is advice for people with no specific issues going on. So this isn't really for you if you're experiencing a doming with a diastasis recti after having a baby postnatally. This isn't advice for you, or give you separate advice. But if you are just experiencing that sort of push forwards and how much should I pull back, generally, I like you to imagine those ribs curling, and I want you to imagine that every time you exhale, your abdominal wall gets to drop back and down to allow you to lift up, because that's what happens in real life. When you inhale, your diaphragm muscle that sits sort of here pushes down and your abdominal wall moves forward to allow the contents of your abdomen to move so your diaphragm can help you breathe. Contents of your abdomen are all of those organs that you desperately need. And so it's normal that when you inhale, we're going to get that little bit of distension, that little bit of a move forward. Then when you exhale, it's sort of like mechanical breathing, if you like, or mechanically assisted breathing. Your abdominal muscles recoil to come back up because, of course, your muscles aren't just sort of neutral pieces of tissue. They've got springy tendencies, and they spring back like your skin springs back if you pinch it up. So they get pushed out and then they recoil back in. And that recoil in helps to close the ribs, and that closing of the ribs helps to push all of that air out of the body to make room for fresh air in the lungs, okay? So instead of thinking about pulling your abdominals super, super, super tight, which can often make us feel it in our hip flexors, I like to think every time you inhale when you're in this position behind you. You're going to inhale the ribs backwards. Every time you exhale, you use these front ribs to close down, to lift you a little bit more and to feel that pull up and in. Now, there's a better place to train that than on your back. And I like to train that on all fours. I find this exercise very beneficial for training myself to get that sense of flattening and widening through those abdominal muscles, okay? So we're on all fours. You're going to push the mat away and round. You're going to tuck the tail. You're going to send your breastbone right up to the ceiling in between your shoulder blades. And we're going to gently then send the hips in front of your knees, just a small little bit. We're going to inhale. And as you exhale, I want you to feel yourself round even more and feel your ribs hug your abdominals. Inhale. Exhale through the nose. And feel your ribs hug your abdominals. And here, you'll start to train that every time you inhale, you're inhaling into that mid-back area in between the shoulder blades, the bra strap area, if you're familiar with it. And then every time you exhale, these ribs in the front of the body are closing in and down with that reach forwards of the arm. So this position is actually the same as this position, except we've just changed our orientation to gravity. So they're really quite similar. So if you imagine all fours versus lying on your back and lifting your head, neck, and shoulders, quite similar positions. And again, it's a little bit easier to train your abdominals in this position, reach round and tail tucks, breastbone up, and ribs wrap every time you exhale than on your back, because there's a little bit more feedback from the ground and a little bit more support. So that exercise again, hands to the mat, press the floor away and round the spine, tuck the tail. Send your hips slightly forwards of your knees. If you've got wrist issues, do go ahead and take your hands in front of you again. We maintain this round. We're going to inhale through the nose into that mid-back area. Exhale through the nose again and continue to round the spine, round the spine, round the spine. Feel that connection. And you will feel your abdominal wall and your oblique muscles start to kick in just a little bit more. I would do that exercise kneeling on all fours for 5 breaths. An inhale and an exhale is 1 breath. I would do that 5 times, relax, and maybe do it again. Hopefully that helps you to then, when you're on your back, curling the upper body off the mat and reaching the arms, hopefully that helps you to have a little bit more endurance and for it to feel a little bit easier for you to feel that pull wide across the front of your abdominal muscles. What I would say is you don't need to force it. There are ways for you to train it, like in that all fours position, that doesn't involve you just sucking everything up and in and creating quite a lot of tension. And I know so many women in particular, myself included, the second that I put on any weight, it goes right into my lower abdominals. And that can make me feel like I don't have good control over my abdominal muscles, but that's not true. If you've got excess weight or excess fat that's laying down on your front here, know that that doesn't affect necessarily the ability of your muscles to contract. So just because you can see a little bit more there, doesn't mean that you're not working your abdominals really well. There are always so many questions to this. So if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch and I can help you a little bit more specifically. Otherwise, go ahead and try that exercise on all fours and see, does that help you improve your lying on your back exercise in Pilates.